So let's begin by looking at the built-in operators in PHP. And you probably know what operators are already from math classes. So they're things like plus and minus and times and divided by and so on. But there are probably more of them in PHP than you're used to working with. So the main page here just has a list of subpages that will take you to different kinds of operators for different categories. And we'll be looking at some of these individual pages later on. Let's get started with the assignment operator. We've seen this already. That's the equal sign. So equal sign is called the assignment operator, and it basically works by calculating what's ever on this side and storing it into this variable. So it's always calculate the value here, store it into here. And then let's spend just a minute on operator precedent. So if you've heard PEMDAS before, P-E-M-D-A-S, for operator precedence, and if you took 122 with me, you probably know that PEMDAS is sort of a lie, because what's really going on is a lot more complicated. So here's a list of all of the operators in PHP along with their precedence. And you'll see there's quite a bit more than just parentheses, addition and subtraction, multiplication and division. Parentheses aren't listed at all, but parentheses always happen first. So everything that you have in parentheses happens first. We'll be learning about the square bracket operator when we get to arrays next week. Exponentiation in PHP 5.6 or later can be written using star star, and we'll look at that when we get to arithmetic operators. There's also increment and decrement operators. Instance of, which we won't be getting until about week 7 when we talk about classes. Logical not, multiplication, division, and a modulo operator. So this is, for example, if you divide 5 by 2, you get 2 with a remainder of 1. So you can say 5 mod 2 is 1. So mod is a remainder operator. Plus, minus, and then dot may be new to you. This is the concatenation operator in PHP. So if you're used to a language like JavaScript or Java, where you can add two strings together using plus, in PHP you add two strings together using dot. There's some bitwise operators, left shift and right shift, which we won't be spending a lot of time with. Comparison operators, which we'll talk about next week. Other comparison operators, equal, equality, not equal, we'll talk about those next week as well. Some more bitwise operators, logical and, which we'll talk about next week. The so-called ternary operator, which we'll talk about next week. And then a bunch of assignment operators that we'll talk about more when we get to arithmetic. Another way of writing logical and that has lower precedence than the ampersand ampersand we see here, and same thing with logical or, which does the same thing but has different precedence than bar bar, exclusive or, and comma, which is generally used in lists of things. So don't worry if this doesn't all make sense now. The important part is to know that this exists, so that if you're trying to understand operator precedence better later on, because your code isn't working correctly, you know that this page is here. I don't think anybody actually memorizes this list. So for most purposes, PEMDAS is all you need. But if you need to do anything fancier, then you'll learn this stuff over time.